Hello, viewers. I warmly welcome you to this edition of Global Vibes, the show that feels the pulse of the global community in Thunder Bay. Please join me in welcoming Scott Bradley, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Thunder Bay Museum. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time, and thank you for being here and joining us in this chat.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So before we learn more about various interesting projects that the Thunder Bay Museum has been doing under your leadership, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started with the Thunder Bay Museum in January of 2020. I worked for 16 years for the National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. And there I worked as a curator, project manager. I worked in the archives, and around 2019, my family decided we wanted to move back to Canada, or move my wife back to Canada. I'm imported, and our kids, and so it was quite the adventure to come to Thunder Bay, and we're really grateful for the opportunity, and we really love it here.
So the opportunity brought you to Thunder Bay?
Yeah, we were looking elsewhere, all over Canada, and the best opportunity was here in Thunder Bay.
So museums play a very crucial role in preserving local cultures, and I see in your banner you have your place in history. Can you tell us a little bit about the mandate, the vision about the Thunder Bay Museum?
Sure. So the Thunder Bay Museum's been around since the early 1970s in its current form, and its mandate is really to preserve and educate on the history of Northwestern Ontario and Thunder Bay, and so we really take that to heart. That your place in history, it's incredibly important that we're relevant to all the peoples of Northwestern Ontario and Thunder Bay. So we're really working hard these days to make sure that we're relevant to everyone.
Right.
And so that means making improvements in our exhibits, making improvements in our policies and our outreach and our collaboration with communities to make sure that everyone can see themselves in our exhibits, in their collection. And so we hope that people see it as their museum.
When you say all the communities, what can you emphasize? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So we're a settler-derived institution. That's how we started. Right. But very much from very early days, the leadership of the museum was trying to make the institution a multicultural institution. So one that's embracing everyone, inclusive, embracing diversity, and really looking towards equity. And we're doing a lot more of that work, as there's been a lot of other social changes in Canada. When we see the Truth and Reconciliation, we see the Canada subscribing to the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So we really want to be the museum that people can see themselves in, whether they're First Nations, whether they're Inuit, whether they're Métis, whether they're a settler to this country from anywhere in the world. Be able to see themselves and have their stories of their journey to this land, and their inclusion in those stories in our institution.
And you've seen the stories evolve over time. The themes have evolved over time.
They have. I mean, obviously, we're looking all the way back into the earliest habitation in Northwestern Ontario by human beings. All the way through the present. And so there's a lot of different stories to tell there. It's a lot of big stories, and our mandate covers a huge area of Canada. So there's a lot of stories.
Northwestern Ontario?
All of Northwestern Ontario. Obviously there's other institutions throughout the entire area, but because of what Thunder Bay is, because it's a hub for Northwestern Ontario, it's hard to tell stories about Thunder Bay and then not tell stories about everything that's connected to Thunder Bay.
Yes, absolutely. And Thunder Bay is the home to about 10 museums?
It is. There are a lot of other great little institutions all around the area.
Yeah.
And so we work in collaboration with a lot of them, and are happy to support their continued success as well. We are the oldest and the largest in Northwestern Ontario, but we're happy to see all of them succeed as well.
Right. Yeah, there's a historical Fort William Historical Park, the Military Museum, etc. And
there's the Thunder Bay Military Museum. There's the the Northwestern Ontario Sports Hall of Fame, the Northwestern Aviation Heritage Center, the Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay, and the list goes on. There's a lot of great institutions right here.
Do you get to work together on any specific project, or everybody has their independent mandates?
Well, everyone has their independent mandates. Obviously, there's a bit of overlap. We're very general. We talk about all the history of Thunder Bay and Northwestern Ontario, but some of them, have very specific things. So we often work closely with the Sports Hall of Fame on projects related to the sports history in the area. And we collaborate back and forth with the art gallery, because often we use art to supplement some of the things we do in our exhibits. We're working on a joint project with Fort William Historical Park this fall. In another month, in October, we'll be opening up a art exhibit. They're bringing in art from all over Canada that represents the history of old Fort William. And so that's an exciting project to be working with them together. And yeah, last fall, we did a joint project with the Thunder Bay Military Museum on the art of prisoners of war from the area. So there's a lot of good things we can all do together, and it's a lot of exciting projects, especially when you're collaborating on things and creating new content, new learning opportunities for people around here. It's great.
Scott, you did mention that you've worked with the art gallery. So definitely art forms is something that you like to showcase. What are the other mediums and forms of artwork, artifacts? So is it pictures, is it movies, it's films, videos, or paintings? What are those mediums that's exhibited?
So in the Thunder Bay Museum, you can find everything. Our collection really spans everything from little tiny pins and buttons all the way up to, we have fire trucks, we have old milk wagons, we have smaller vehicles, chainsaws, mining equipment, military uniforms, but we also have paintings and photography, charcoal art, we have sculpture, we have taxidermied animals. Wow. I mean it's everything that you can imagine. But we try to use creative ways to make sure that the art and the artifacts we're putting on exhibit are helping forward the story. We have educational goals we put into every exhibit, and sometimes we may not have the art, and that's why we may do a collaboration with the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. So last year we brought in a traveling exhibit from the Legacy of Hope Foundation about residential schools. And we didn't necessarily have pieces in our collection that. And
so you worked with.
So we worked with them, and they had some pieces of art that were made by Indigenous artists that showed mothers and children. Oh. And so they added to the exhibit about residential schools in a meaningful way, and to show those emotional connections and those important connections for families.
And important stories to share. Scott,
So.
we will take a very, very small little break. And we'll be right back, viewers, to continue our discussion. Hello, viewers. Welcome back to Global Vibes. Today, we are in conversation with Scott Bradley, CEO of Thunder Bay Museum. So Scott, now I would like to know more about a very special project that you are involved with. It's Behind Racism, Challenging the Way We Think. What is the thought behind this project? What is the concept?
So, we encountered this exhibit in our travels a couple of years ago, and it's a traveling exhibit from the Ontario Science Centre. And they built it in collaboration with the Canadian Race Relations Foundation. And when we saw it, we got very excited about this exhibit, because we thought, what a great way to help bring the conversation forward in Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay has a reputation of being a place where there's more racism than there might be in other places. And the exhibit really explores it through a lens of looking at why our brains work in certain ways that could lead to bias and possibly racism. And so it explores ways that we can look at those ways of thinking and explore ways to overcome those sort of things. And we thought, well, that's really great. And people have asked me very similar questions. And I think it's really important from a historian's point of view to understand the why of many things in history. And this exhibit helps us answer that question of why. When we look at the history of Canada, we look at the history of Northwestern Ontario and why certain things happened, whether it be the Indian Act or just structural racism, things that have happened in policy and the way our institutions, some institutions have been set up in the past. This helps us put those things into context from a historical point of view. And it helps, and I think it helps just move the message forward. We want to be an actively anti-racist institution. We want to be creating the environment for the kind of society we want in the future. So museums can't be neutral in those conversations. And so we really felt it was important to bring this here, to have that conversation, and to continue to do similar things in the future.
Scott, you touched upon this, that you're doing this project or this exhibit here in Thunder Bay. But why now? Why in Thunder Bay? How is it relevant to Thunder Bay?
Well, I can't speak to all the exact data, but the opportunity was now. And the Ontario Science Centre said, well, you can have it this year, and it was kind of a scramble to find the funding to get it shipped here. But thanks to the city's anti-racism and equity committee, our equity advisory committee, and also the financial contribution of Matawa First Nations, we were able to bring the exhibit here. And so it was a narrow window we had the opportunity. So it was June through the end of September, but it was wide. It should have been sooner that we were able to bring this exhibit here, and it's just important to continue these conversations and to give folks that have the wherewithal and have the desire to bring change to how they interact with people, how they treat others, and to work on their own personal bias to improve themselves. This gives them the tools, it gives them the opportunity, and and hopefully, museums are also a place where we hope that everyone who comes and sees exhibits is challenged in the way they think. Any good exhibit in a museum, whether it's talking about birds, turtles, cannons, anything, people should leave questioning what they knew before and what they know now. And this exhibit is part of that. It starts a conversation, inspires real thought in folks. And hopefully people, after they see this exhibit at the museum, leave thinking, I know how I can be better. I know how I can have better conversations with my loved ones, but also better interactions and better support people in my community who might be slightly different than me.
Yeah. And so I get the motivation, and I see that you've got lots of nice partners out there, collectively thinking along the same lines. What exactly are the exhibits? The photographs by artists and telling a story?
So the Behind Racism, Challenging the Way We Think contains some photographs, but it also contains a bunch of interactives for people to, some interactive games and some quizzes and things to kind of work on the neuroplasticity or how people's brains work, and help them find the tools to change the way they think and to work on their own bias and all those sorts of things. But it also contains a lot of information about how people think, about how brains work, and how we kind of came to some of the feelings or biases that we have in our lives. And so it does that through, it walks you through a very slow path to get to those conclusions. So it's not a jarring exhibit to come visit. It is very much, hey, start thinking this way. Hey, let's work on this other bit, and hey, let's work on some more things that you should know about. And so it's a great way to kind of walk through all that.
Can you remind us again about the timeline, the dates? How long are the exhibits going to be in display?
So the exhibit should be here through September 26th, and then then it's going to be moving on to its next location in Canada.
Okay. So Scott, do you think that museums play a role in raising awareness of social justice that's very prevalent in Thunder Bay and in our region, in local or social contexts?
I think museums should.
Should.
Yes.
You did say that it should not have a neutral voice, or it should?
It should not have a neutral voice. No, museums cannot be neutral in a lot of these things. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be making a lot of noise, or we need to be.
No, but they're a subtle way of
Yeah.
sharing those expressions. Yeah.
And through our exhibits and through truth, we can still raise those issues and bring them to the forefront and get people thinking about things. And so we can do that also by reworking and making sure that our exhibits and our content and everything we're doing interpretation wise is coming from a voice and a point of view that's not necessarily from one particular group. So trying to be as neutral as we can in voice and tone and how we're interpreting things, but still bringing up important and sensitive issues. And again, the truth about what happened, not just a particular viewpoint.
Thank you so much, Scott. Yeah. We'll take another short break. Dear viewers, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello viewers, welcome back to Global Vibes. This is the last segment of our discussion and conversation with Scott Bradley, CEO of the Thunder Bay Museum. What projects are you envisaging in the coming months, years? What is the museum going to be engaging in?
So over the next few years, we've kind of laid out a plan to look at bringing in some more innovative exhibits that are going to help move some conversation forward. So we're hoping in the next couple of years to bring in something that is discussing a very sensitive topic of murdered and missing women and girls, Indigenous women and girls. We also hope to bring an art project to the front of the museum. We're actually working on collaborating with local artists to paint some of the pillars on the outside of the museum on the non-historic part of the building. With art that represents a lot of the social issues that are going on in Northwestern Ontario, and bring awareness to those, also to activate some of the space and create a bit of public art on the outside of the building. So we're really excited about that collaboration, hoping that happens next year. We're also exploring collecting some funding and possibly creating a for medicine garden on the grounds of the building, so making it a more welcome place that also people can come to and experience and enjoy those medicines. We're also, looking at the long term. We're looking at our entire exhibits, all our permanent exhibits. So we're looking at reviewing every one of them and looking at whether they're telling the whole truth, whether they're as inclusive as they could be, and whether we can make changes so that people that are in town see themselves in those exhibits and in appropriate times that they should be. We know that Thunder Bay has been a diverse place for a very long time, and we need that to be shown in the exhibits in an appropriate and way. So we've been working on a lot of that. In the long term, we're looking at a feasibility study in the next little while on how we could expand our facility to tell more of those stories.
And so leading to that, what can the community do for you to support your work?
So we would love for the communities to come forward and make donations of things that represent their story in Thunder Bay. Whether you're an immigrant or your family is an immigrant to the country, whether you're newly arrived, whether your family's been here for 60 years, 100 years, or your family's always been here. We would love to have donations of things that represent your family, your story, so that we have a better representation of the people that are here. A lot of our collection is about settlers from Europe, and we would like to see it much more diversity in our collection. When we have more diversity in our collection, that means we can add diversity to our exhibits. We do have an oral history program going as well, and we would love to do oral history work with elders from immigrant communities as well as from BIPOC communities to make sure that we're capturing those stories that are not well represented in the museum's collections now, but could be an important part of future exhibits.
Absolutely. How do we connect with you, Scott?
So folks can go to our website at thunderbaymuseum.com, or they can email info@museum or at thunderbaymuseum.com. They can also find us on social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. We have a TikTok account for you young folks.
We do have TikTok. I must look into that.
So we're available. We're easy to reach. You can also call the museum at 807-623-0801 and get a hold of us any of those ways. And we'd love to have a conversation about including your stories into our museum.
And physically, where is the museum?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So the museum, if you want to just pop by and actually see the museum, because we want everybody to come and see the museum, we're at 425 Donald Street. So we're down in downtown, historic downtown Fort William. We're kind of across the street from City Hall.
Right. And Scott, do you also participate in the community fairs or educational fairs that happens in town in the summer?
Yeah, it'd be easy to find us at any of the city's events down at Marina Park.
Mm-hmm.
We also, when we can, we make it up to some of the local powwows.
As well?
Yeah, we go to movie nights, we go to some of the concerts, and we try to make it to some of the conventions in town. So look for our booth. It should have something like that.
Your place in history.
Yes.
And make a mark for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Scott, you have touched upon this. So you would agree that the museum plays a very important role and in terms of providing that common ground to raise awareness on building relationships and raising awareness on race relations and various other social justice issues. That's some of the remarkable work you're doing. And you also shared some new projects that you're going to be involved in.
Yeah, I think it's very important. We see ourselves. I think museums and cultural institutions are pillars of the community,
yeah.
and we need to be helping move those conversations forward in places where other institutions, the other parts of our society, government and other portions of society, maybe their ability is limited, and we are part of that conversation. We have to be part of that conversation.
And I'm so glad you mentioned TikTok, because we have the youth. We need their participation and their engagement as well. So
Yeah.
that is great.
Yeah, and the demographics are changing throughout Canada and throughout the world, and museum goers are a little different these days. So we one of the things we're looking at when we do our long-term exhibits thinking is, how do we change our exhibits so they're more relevant to young people?
Okay.
They have very different views on things, and they want to have these really meaningful experiences that are relevant to them. And so we have to adjust.
Perhaps even school, for children as well, start young.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much, Scott. I really enjoyed talking to you and learned so much about the Tindley Museum. And I plan to visit the museum sometime soon and see this project for myself. Thank you so much
Thank
for what you're doing. Thank you, viewers, for joining us on this edition of Global Vibes. We had a fantastic discussion and awareness on what the museum can do in terms of raising awareness on social justice issues and various other social or culturally or the evolving and emerging multicultural community of Thunder Bay, raising awareness about all of this. So till we meet again, stay well. We'll be right back.